Wednesday, July 23rd edition of PFT PM. This is the first of the final 3 episodes before PFT PM reverts back to what it is the rest of the year, which is basically, hey, something happened after 9 o'clock Eastern that we should probably talk about. Go talk about it, and we'll put it under the PFT PM brand. But for 5 or 6 this year, 6 weeks out of the year, it is the daily place where I talk about whatever is going on in the NFL. And there's never a shortage. Now that all camps are open, there's clearly no shortage. So let's get to it. And we begin in Oxnard, the site of the Dallas Cowboys training camp, at least for the first couple of weeks of the process. Micah Parsons is there. Jerry Jones is there. Jerry Jones has said some things. Micah Parsons has said some things. And I want to elaborate just a little bit on something I've mentioned a few times. And this relates to the leverage a player has under the collective bargaining agreement. And remember, anytime anyone says a player needs to honor his contract, there are 2 contracts that apply to any NFL player: his contract with the team and the broader contract between the league and the union. Players have rights under the broader contract to not honor the more specific contract. The broader contract gives them those rights. So you can be fully in compliance with the broader contract while technically violating the narrower contract. And that's important because if you don't show up for training camp, you have the right. They can't force you to be there. There are financial penalties that apply, but you have the right to stay away. And if you never show up, you can stay away for all of training camp. You can stay away for all of the preseason. You can stay away into the regular season. And ultimately, you can show up the Tuesday after week 10 and finish out the season. So you have a lot more flexibility to wait and wait and wait and then arrive. If you leave once you've shown up, it's a lot more complicated and it's a lot riskier. I've alluded to that just along the lines of, take my word for it, not that you ever would. It's become more pressing now that Parsons was specifically asked that question in not exactly those words, but are you still considering holding out, basically? You're here. Are you still considering holding out? Which implies you would leave. And let's not get it twisted. Leaving is not the same as never showing up. I spelled this out last night. I looked for it in the CBA. I always thought it was in the CBA. It's not. It's in the NFL Constitution and bylaws, which apply to the players. If the player leaves, and if he's gone for 5 days, after those 5 days, the team has a decision to make. And one of the options the team makes as of those 5 days, put the player on the reserve retired list for that year. And under those circumstances, if the player walks out at any point during training camp, preseason, or regular season, it doesn't mention postseason, which is kind of interesting, but it doesn't matter for today. Training camp, preseason, regular season, if you leave and you don't come back in 5 days, they can shut you down for the rest of the season and you don't get paid. Everything about your career gets pressed pause for a year. Until the next year. Everything is suspended until the next year. So if Micah Parsons would say, hey, you know what? I showed up in good faith. I showed up for my teammates. I showed up to do the right thing, to honor my contract. And I thought they were going to work out a deal with me. And they keep lowballing me. They keep dragging their feet. I'm done. I'm out. I'm gone. That's fine. Day 1. It's fine. Day 2 and 3 and 4. Ooh, day 5 rolls around. You're playing Russian roulette with your entire football season. Because all Jerry Jones has to say is, fine, we're putting you on the reserve retired list, and you're shut down for the whole year. Now, remember, we're talking about a group of individuals who will, to get what they want, shut down the entire sport for a year. So would Jerry Jones do something so objectively ridiculous as shut Micah Parsons down for the whole year if he goes away for 5 days and doesn't show up? Can you rule that out? Can you rule that out? And if you want your players to be sufficiently under their thumb. And that really is the message that a lot of these teams want to send to the players. And we're going to talk about another one of them coming up. It has some similarities to Jerry Jones in Mike Brown. Probably the only thing they have in common. One of the few things they have in common. We run the show and you don't. So if Micah Parsons were to leave and not return in 5 days, and Jerry Jones were to shut him down for the rest of the season with no pay and kick his $24 million fifth-year option to next year, basically wipe away a year of his career, if he would do that, what a powerful message that would send to anybody else in the future who's not happy with their contract. Now, what it would do is it would ensure that anybody who's not happy with their contract just isn't going to show up, as Micah Parsons shouldn't have shown up. My prediction continues to be he will stay. He will get lowballed by the Cowboys, and he'll have to decide, will I take this contract that is less than what I would have gotten if I'd held out, that is less than what I would get if I kick it to next year and if I stay healthy, and if I apply my leverage to the full extent next year? Because I think the Cowboys would be content to not do a deal and let it ride until 2026. They typically only do deals when the clock is striking 12. And week 1 does not mean the clock is striking 12. It means it's striking 12 if the guy's held out and you need him to show up. But if the guy's already there, remember the Roquan Smith example. I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. If you hold in and the team is fine with you holding in, at some point the team says, hey, it's time to go to work. Like we've given you 6 weeks to work with us here to get a deal done. We can't get a deal done. It's time to go to work. It's time to play football. You're here. And what can you do at that point? You can't leave. And if you refuse to play, if you refuse to practice once the team says you need to practice and play, you get yourself into a situation where you're potentially fined for conduct detrimental to the team and suspended without pay for conduct detrimental to the team. So I don't know if he's going to get a new contract. He may have to accept a deal that is less than what he wants. And maybe it will be $42.1 million per year, just a click above TJ Watt. Maybe it won't be 45. Maybe it won't be between 45 and 50. Whatever he gets, if he gets it, if he takes it, if he takes their last best offer before week 1, it's going to be less than what he would have gotten if he would have stayed away, period. And I'm pro player. I'm just being realistic here. And I respect the fact that Micah Parsons wants to be there for his teammates. And, you know, he may do a little old school hold in, oh, my back is tight. That's fine. I got no problem with that. I'm not bound by the same requirements that J.C. Tretter was when he was NFLPA president and he suggested that players fake injury. I can flat out say it. If you're not happy with your contract situation and you have any injury, if you have anything that is keeping you less than 100%, don't practice. I'm not saying make it up. I'm saying don't tough it out because you're only hurting yourself because you don't have any financial security beyond this year. So, look, hey, maybe Micah could leave for 4 days and then come back for a day and leave for 4 days. Maybe he could do that. Regardless, I think they're going to try to screw him. And he's played into their hands. They use a player's good nature, a player's commitment to his teammate. Anything they can, they'll use it against you. Players from this town, like with the Lions. Oh, Aiden Hutchinson's from Detroit. He's not going to drive too hard of a bargain. He wants to stay in Detroit. We can lowball him. Micah Parsons wants to stay a Cowboy. We can lowball him. Micah Parsons wants to be here for his teammates. We can lowball him. They're always looking for a way to lowball you folks, and they doesn't just mean NFL owners. They means everybody who's got the money, then they want to keep the money and not give it to you. Rise up, workers of America. Push back. They do it to everybody. They probably do it to me. They know I want to be at NBC. I could probably make more if I said, man, I really don't want to be here. I'm going to go somewhere else. Now that you mention, maybe I do need to hire an agent. All right. Next up, what are the Bengals going to do with Trey Hendrickson and Shemar Stewart? Very different circumstances with real similarities, because the common thread is power play. We're in charge and you're not. And the Trey Hendrickson thing, it's not just about APY. And he wants, the last I heard, Max Crosby money. I don't know that he's looking for TJ Watt or Myles Garrett money. If anything, the Max Crosby deal is more reasonable now that TJ Watt's at 42, Max Crosby at 35.5. They had offered him back in February, March, $28 million a year. which, hey, it sounds good. And see, this is the problem. Fans are like, oh boy, good luck living on that. But that's not the reality. Is getting your full worth, because the owners are getting theirs. They've got their super yachts. They've got their mansions. They've got their trust funds. They've got their money, and they have all the equity. So don't hate the players who are trying to get what they should fairly be seeking. And yeah, 16 million is a lot more than most people make, but it's woefully less than what Trey Hendrickson is worth to the Bengals. And he's got limited bites at the apple. This isn't money he's going to make every year for the rest of his life. He's got one more opportunity to cash in. This is it. So don't hate him for trying to do it. And the other wrinkle, and this was contributed by Adam Schefter yesterday, the Bengals are only offering 1 year of full guarantees. So what are we doing here? There's no security beyond this year. They could tear up the contract after one season. It becomes like a Sam Darnold deal. Oh, it's 3 years, 100 and whatever million. No, it's 1 year. We can tear it up after the year the way it's structured. That's part of it too. With Shemar Stewart, it has nothing to do with money because the money is slotted. It's driven by the fact that he was the 17th pick in the draft. This is that language about the voiding of guarantees. And there's a long quote from Mike Brown about this. And he's taken some liberties with the facts, like, oh, we don't want to have to pay a guy who's sitting in jail. Well, you know what? You don't have to pay a guy who's sitting in jail. What they want to have the ability to do, because their contracts were previously written that if you committed default in the current year, your guarantee's void for this year. That's the existing language. They want to change it to if you committed default this year, the guarantee's void for the rest of the contract. And yes, other teams have done that. And that's one of the what about points that I hear all the time from Bengals fans. Well, other teams do it. Yeah, but the Bengals hadn't done it. The Bengals had a way of doing their contracts. It is their pattern and practice. And it was good enough last year for Marius Mims to have the default apply only to the guarantees for this year. It was good enough earlier this year for T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Now, all of a sudden, they want to change it for Shemar Stewart. And they don't want to give him anything to do it. It's just like, hey, we're changing this term. Well, what's in it for me? Nothing. We're changing this term. Shut up, sign it, and play. That's their attitude. That's been the vibe communicated to Shemar Stewart and his agent. Just shut up and sign it and play. Be grateful you have a job. You know, it's the same shit, sorry, Kristen, that we'll hear from fans from time to time. Just be happy you have a job. Go bag groceries instead. I mean, the comments on the cesspool known as Twitter, they're predictable. If you don't want that money, go do something else. Wait a minute. The team wants the player. As I say all the time, and Chris and I argue about this at least once a year, it's not an honor and a privilege for the player to be drafted by the team. It's an honor and a privilege for the team to have the ability to say to the player, hey, you know what? You can go to any other team if you wanted, but we have the right to bring you here. It's our honor and our privilege to tell you, who would otherwise have options as to where you're going to work and play football and live, you have to come to us. The honor is theirs. So they'd like to twist it around. And again, it's about power. It's about who's in charge. This Shemar Stewart thing could be done like that. I think if they would just find some stupid little thing that they could offer him, just some dumb little term, like how much of his signing bonus he gets up front, like just increase it a little bit, and at least it's something. This is the classic find a way to let the other side save face. And I don't know that this is the truth, but you know, the example I always go back to is the Cuban Missile Crisis. We needed to give the Soviets something to take the missiles out of Cuba. So, okay, we're going to take the missiles out of Turkey that we were going to take out anyway. Boom. Face is saved, problem is solved. So, Bengals, I beseech you, not to go all Craig Jones, but I beseech you, please find a way for your own benefit, for your fans' benefit. Find a way. Don't be so gosh darn stubborn. You don't have to, I know you want to, but you don't have to like rub everyone's face. We're in charge. We control. No, do the right thing. Come up with a win-win solution. Be smart. Be creative. Don't be stubborn. And don't be disingenuous. Don't lie to your fans. Because the contract that they're complaining about now was good enough last year. It was good enough earlier this year. And it'll be interesting to see if they work out a deal with Trey Hendrickson, whether they cram that new language into his deal too. Okay. There's another holdout. Terry McLaurin, veteran receiver, due to make only $15 million this year. And please, only $15 million? No, he's woefully underpaid. And I think we can agree he needs a raise. and he's taking a stand. Good time to take a stand. You know why? Commanders have 2 more years of Jaden Daniels' slotted rookie contract before he's even eligible for a second contract. So get yours now, Terry McLaurin. They just aren't at an agreement as to what it will take. So he's doing what Micah Parsons didn't do. He is staying away. Now, at some point, that's going to put pressure on the Commanders. And the one point I didn't make earlier with Trey Hendrickson, he holds out. They don't care. Go ahead and hold out. We don't care. We're not giving in. The Commanders might be more inclined to give in. They might be more inclined to blink at some point and get this deal done. Adam Peters comes from the 49ers where hold out, and finally get the deal done. It would be nice if everybody just got on the same page. Let's pretend the clock is striking midnight. Let's pretend the chariot's about to turn into a pumpkin, and let's just get this deal done and get him in camp and get him ready for the season. You're going to do it anyway. Let's just go ahead and get it done now. I feel like that's what's going on with the Commanders and Terry McLaurin. They're going to get it done anyway. Let's just get it done now. Maybe the president will post a tweet demanding that the Commanders do it now. Moving on. Tua Tagovailoa met with reporters on Wednesday morning. I saw this just before I came down here, talking about Tyreek Hill and how the relationship between Hill and Tua and Hill and the team is still a work in progress. And I credit Tua for saying it out loud, because anybody with any common sense that has paid attention to the Dolphins for the past 9-10 months, you look at it and you're like, this guy doesn't want to be there. He says after the regular season finale, I'm done, I'm out. And then out of the blue, Super Bowl week, he goes to New Orleans and does this world apology tour. He was on PFT Live, wallowing in shame. I was wrong. You know, you still got to win the trust back of your teammates. And when you think about that vulnerable moment, your season's over, you've lost, your expectations, your hopes, your aspirations are dashed. And one of your teammates, one of your leaders, guy with a C on his jersey, is saying, I want out. You're going to forget that just because the guy all of a sudden realizes it's probably not in my interest to be acting that way? Has he really changed? Has he really changed, or is he just saying what he has to say to get back in the good graces of the team and the fans and the teammates? And I think of all of the parties involved, between the team, the fans, and the teammates, the most discerning are the teammates, because they're the ones who have to line up with the player. Do they really trust this guy? And, you know, if a game's going poorly, what's he going to say afterward? If the ball's not coming his way, when's he going to be acting like a jerk on the sidelines? Is he really different? And I think with Tyreek Hill, there's a lot of stuff behind the curtain that goes on. Like the Chiefs dealt with a lot of stuff quietly. I suspect that if we had the cameras and microphones on all the time, there'd be a lot of Tyreek Hill chirping and complaining and boasting. And, you know, we're all human. There's only so much of that stuff we can deal with. We all have coworkers that we would like to strangle because they won't shut the hell up. They say things that are stupid or egocentric, or like, come on, man, have some self-awareness. Don't be a jerk all the time. And Tyreek Hill, can he prove to his teammates that he really has changed? So it is a work in progress. I credit Tua for saying it. And they got enough to worry about this season. I don't know how talented they are. I would pick them fourth in the division. If they don't make the playoffs this year, there could be some massive changes come 2026 for the Miami Dolphins. But so much of what they're able to do is going to hinge on Tyreek Hill properly turning the page, properly winning back the trust of his teammates, and it's not going to be an easy thing to do. He almost has to prove it through adversity, not through success. You come out week one, have 150 yards and a touchdown, everything's great. When you have that game where you get 2 targets, where you're shut down, where you think you're open and he's not throwing it to you, his reaction to those games will be the truest test of whether or not he's truly changed. And I'd like to think that, for the most part, people are fully formed by the time they get to their 30s when it comes to, you know, but hey, prove me wrong. Tyreek, prove us all wrong. Prove Tua wrong. Win their trust. Undergo a late NFL career epiphany, and the team will be better off for it if it happens. All right. I want to thank Pablo Torre again for joining me yesterday to have a wide-ranging, open-ended, unscripted conversation about all things NFL Players Association. There was a new item at ESPN.com today from Don Van Natta Jr. and Kalen Kaler about the hiring of Lloyd Howell and the collapse of his tenure. And after I read it, the question that I kept coming back to is very simple. Have they learned from the hiring and also the blind circling of the wagons around Lloyd Howell when the walls started to close in? I know I'm mixing metaphors, but when it was becoming more and more apparent that Lloyd Howell needed to go, the mindset was fight, attack. Remember the statement that was issued by the executive committee? It was one of those political style attack, 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 deny, 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 always declare victory, never admit defeat. We're right, you're wrong, even when we're wrong. What have they learned from all of this? And there are many lessons to be learned, many lessons to be learned by the NFL Players Association over what happened with Lloyd Howell. From the top secret, non-transparent selection process that had objectively good candidates not make it to the final six. And then at the end, you've got two candidates where the executive committee believes that one is superior by a straw poll of 10-1, and the other one is the one who gets the job because they didn't tell the board of player reps that they strongly preferred the other guy. It's all ridiculous. The issues with Lloyd Howell, as somebody said in the ESPN article, if you're going to run a union, you need to be unblemished. And there were blemishes up the wazoo for Lloyd Howell. Reasons to say we could probably do better. Hell, reasons for the other guy where you could have said we probably could do better. Are they trying their damnedest to do the best they can do? Russell Reynolds, the search firm, that group has not gotten nearly enough scrutiny here. And there was some reporting, it was Washington Post, because there's this weird connection. Anamika Gupta worked at Booz Allen, where Lloyd Howell worked for years. She was there 2002 to 2006. Then more recently, she's at Russell Reynolds. Then after the Russell Reynolds search firm tees up Lloyd Howell and he becomes the next executive director of the NFLPA, he hires her to be the chief of staff. There's just some weird tentacles here, and I know that Russell Reynolds is vehemently denied. And how dare you? How dare you, sir? How dare you even question us? That's the attitude that their quote to the Washington Post conveyed to me. That's my opinion. Don't sue me for that. But the attitude was, how dare you even question us? We are indignant. Challenged me to a duel for daring to suggest that something untoward is happening here. But there's so much about all of this that has been untoward. Conflicts of interest galore. What are you going to learn from this? And who do you have in place to help you learn it? They say they're going to name a new interim executive director in the near future. That was the statement from Jalen Reeves-Maven, the president of the union, who had been completely silent. And he's not even on a team now. He's got plenty of time to do union stuff. He could do interviews. He could issue statements. He can be around. He can be present. He's not on a team. I know he needs to keep himself in shape, but he's not on a team, which also means the clock is ticking toward him no longer being the NFLPA president. But I feel like there is a complete and total leadership vacuum. And the biggest question is this: who will your interim executive director be? The only names I've seen so far are people who are already working for the union or NFL Players Inc. or otherwise, in the building, under the bubble. You need to pop out of the bubble. They did that in the hiring of Lloyd Howell. The story from ESPN talks about how they were smitten with this idea that he's not a union guy, he's a company guy. He wants to be cooperative, not combative, but he knows how to fight with unions, which is kind of inconsistent. We want a guy who's cooperative, not combative. Let's get a guy who used to fight with unions. Okay? How about if you're going to do that? And this leads into the first question. And let me just say, most of the time I regret having a presence on that cesspool, formerly known as Twitter, because there's a lot of ugliness, there's a lot of hate. Every once in a while, I'm happy that we're there. And this is one of those rare days where I'm very happy that we've maintained our presence, because I got a question from Trevor Van Straten that when I first saw it, I thought, all right, that's good. Let's add it to the stack. And then as I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I talked to some people about it, and you know my position on this. I am not going to play Game of Thrones. If you think that you or someone you represent or someone you know or whatever would be a great candidate to be the interim executive director, don't try to get me to take up the case. And it's been attempted. Don't try to get me to say, hey, here's somebody who'd be a good candidate. That's not happening. I'm making an exception, and not because I've heard that this person is interested. I'm just trying to think of it from the standpoint of what is best for the NFL Players Association at this point in their existence. And, you know, they were kind of halfway there with Lloyd Howell. Let's get someone from management. Let's get someone not who has experience running unions, which would probably advisable, but let's get somebody who's got experience on the other side. Well, if you're going to do that, no half measures, as Mike Ehrmantraut said. Get somebody from the other side in this specific relationship. Get somebody from inside the walls of 345 Park Avenue. And not just somebody from the league office. This is an opportunity that has fallen into the laps of the NFL Players Association. I hadn't thought of it until this question came in. Here's the question from Trevor Van Straten. Could you see Mark Murphy, the outgoing Packers CEO, being a viable interim head of the union? He won't be the Packers president as of Friday, and he was a former player. And yes, it's genius. He wasn't just an employee of the league. He was a de facto owner. He was the guy who held the vote at the table with the other 31 multi-billionaires. He's the only millionaire in the room of billionaires. And he was there, and he was involved. And I can't remember why, but I remember the union was pissed at him in 2011. They were pissed at Mark Murphy after the CBA was resolved. Pissed. And you know what? Good. That means that he was doing his job. He was fighting for his constituents. He got the best deal he could for his partners. Man, now I have no idea if he'd be interested, but man, I would throw a giant pile of money at Mark Murphy to come be the interim executive director for a year. A year. Give him a year. Give him $10 million to come be the executive director of the union. And hell, maybe he's your answer after that. I'd want him around for the next CBA. This is your only way. NFLPA, let me tell you something. This is free advice. This is a great deal for you, players. I will happily try to promote your interests without you ever having to give me a penny. This is a great move. You get a guy who knows what the NFL's playbook is, who's been involved in the formulation of the next playbook. Remember the commissioner said after the May meetings, we spent a lot of time talking about the financial side of the next CBA and the salary cap and is it working? It was a message, I believe, that we're going to try to change the current financial formula in the next CBA. I firmly believe they're going to try to take away the 50-50 split and do something less or do a specific set number for the salary cap every year, and whatever money comes in above that goes to the owners. Murphy knows all that. And I don't know, is there's some contract that he'd be breaching? Is there some NDA? I don't know. I'd at least make the phone call, because he's leaving the Packers due to one specific reality. In their corporate bylaws, once you turn 70, you got to go. Former player, knows the specific business very well, was in the room for all the important meetings over the last 15, 20 years, however long he's been the president. Man, that's who I would call. That's who I would interview. That's who I would want to be the executive director of the NFLPA, interim and possibly through the next CBA. You want to level the playing field, players? That's how you do it. You got to do something bold. You got to do something outside the box. You got to do something that will strike fear into the hearts of the owners. And gets back to that misguided idea. We need somebody who's going to cooperate, not somebody who's going to agitate. No, you are dealing with some of the richest people in the world who are used to getting their way. And they will shake your hand and smile while they stick a knife in your ribs. They are ruthless. They didn't get that rich by not being ruthless. There's a certain amount of wealth that you will only compile if you are ruthless, charmingly ruthless. You need somebody who knows how they operate, who can speak their language, and who will be able to go toe-to-toe with them and create leverage and not hide a partial victory in a key arbitration ruling in a desk for 5 months. That's my pitch. That's the only name I'm going to mention. And I have no idea if he wants it. He may be mad that I'm even suggesting it. And there may be some legal barrier to him doing it. I don't know. But if I'm the NFL players right now, I want Mark Murphy as my interim executive director and possibly beyond. Because the only way we're going to come out of this next CBA discussion with a fair shake is with somebody who knows what's going on the other side of the curtain, because he's been there for years. A couple more questions before we wrap it up. C. Nevitt. This one comes via Blue Sky. Where do agents fall in the relationship between the league and the union? Ostensibly, they represent players, but they also need to maintain good relationships with the league to that end. So are they on one side over another, or are they a third separate side? It depends on the agent. I've talked to more than a few agents since Pablo Torre and I joined forces, and he discovered the 61-page hidden collusion ruling. And I've tried to work with agents to make sure their clients understand what happened. I think they have a duty. I had this argument with a prominent agent. I think you have a duty to let your clients know what's gone on here. And the attitude I've gotten from that agent and others, hey, I got to stay out of this. I rely on both sides here. I need the union. I need the union to help me collect fees if my clients stiff me. The union has the power to discipline, suspend, revoke my license. I don't want to get involved in this. And as I've said time and again, there's too much of that. I don't want to get involved in this day and age. There's too much fear of reprisal. There's too few people who are willing to say what needs to be said when it needs to be said, even if it might get you in trouble. Too many people hiding under the bed in today's world, politically and otherwise. But most of the people, most of the agents do not want to say anything. And even the ones that will not talk on the record. Peter Schaefer, I think, is the only one who gave an on-the-record comment, current agent. Mike McCartney did as well in, I believe, one of the ESPN articles. So 2 agents have. Most have kept quiet. And you wonder what they're saying to their clients. But I think, if anything, the agent should be fully aligned with the players. They have to deal with the teams, not the league. They deal with the teams, but they're regulated by the union, and they serve the players. If anything, they should be fully on board with the union, but that's where it becomes weird. Like, I'm on board with the players, but there's currently issues with the Players Association that may create animosity between the best interest of the players and the best interest of those running the union. I mean, hey, I'll give you a prime example, and I think I mentioned this either in a post at PFT or on an episode of PFT PM, but I've had for years a very cooperative relationship with the union. And they understand that I'm a friend of the players, that it irritates me that fans blindly adhere to whatever the owners say, and they line up behind the laundry, and they resent the players, and they line up and support billionaires over millionaires. And I firmly believe that. And I had that epiphany years ago, that we watch the games to see the players. We're not watching for the cutaways of the owners in the luxury suite. We're watching the game for the players. The players are the game. Without the players, there is no game. What was my point? I had a good point there, and I've completely forgotten what it was. Anyway, like all of a sudden, the union doesn't respond to any of my requests. Liz Allen, their new PR person. We had a great relationship. We were going to get together at some point in June. Hey, come over to D.C. I'll come to West Virginia. Like, they understand I'm a good ally for them. But hey, now that, God forbid, I'm reporting on some of the stuff that's been happening with the union, I'm the enemy. I'm not the enemy. And I'm not violating any off-the-record communications by saying that. The union used to be very cooperative with me, and now they will not answer my text messages at all. And I'm in this for the good of the players. So the players who run the union, this is another thing to, like, are these people who are at the union now, are they really in it for you, or are they in it for themselves? Lloyd Howell was clearly in it for himself. J.C. Tretter, hey, he's doing the reclamation tour, and I may have more to say about that, possibly with Pablo Torre next week. We'll see. J.C. Tretter's trying to paint himself as a victim in all of this. I'm not buying it. We clearly know that Lloyd Howell is not the victim. If anything, he's the villain so far. Are there others? Possibly. But the players need to ask themselves, are these folks who are being paid to run this union really in it for us, or are they in it for themselves? And when you have somebody in the media who is trying to do the right thing by the players, and all of a sudden they won't respond to any question I pose, are you really helping the players? Are you really helping the players? Or are you helping yourself? Next question. Scotty Ferg, I fear when flag football becomes an Olympic sport and is seen worldwide in 2028, it'll be widely accepted to possibly phase out the current NFL that we now know today. Could the NFL be known as the National Flag League in the future? I think that the NFL's primary motivation in going all in with flag football is this is a cheaper and more effective way to globalize the sport from a participation standpoint, because I think it's impossible to truly globalize the sport if people aren't playing it. And it's more difficult and expensive to play 11-on-11 tackle football than it is to play flag football. So let's get flag football around the globe, and that'll get people interested in tackle football. That's the thinking. Now, I know there are some old school football people who say, why are we pushing kids away from tackle football to flag football? Why are we doing that? We're going to lose players from tackle football. They may never play tackle football, and they may have been spectacular players. So there's that concern. It's also, and I don't know that the NFL is mapping out this strategy, but it is a convenient reality to have a robust flag football presence in the event society ever evolves to the point where we come to the conclusion that human beings should not be playing football. You know, they're doing research on detecting CTE in living patients. Currently, you can only find CTE in the deceased. If and when you could take a blood test and find out how advanced or not your potential brain issues are. Now, I don't know how many players would stop playing football. I think fewer than we realize, but we don't know how the world is going to change in the coming years. There may be a moment where tackle football basically morphs into a hybrid with flag. I don't know. But it is useful for the NFL to have a fallback plan in place in the event that that happens with tackle football at some point in the future. They previously didn't have it, and now they will. I think the primary goal, though, is globalize the sport via participation. And if there are issues that undermine tackle football along the way, so be it. If it becomes a convenient alternative to tackle football at some point in the future, hey, at least football is still part of the fabric of sports, both in America and beyond. Last one, Callum Simons. What's your favorite football film, with the U in favorite, meaning that question is coming from the UK or Ireland? And we will be back next week, 6 o'clock local time. I almost said Eastern, 6 o'clock local time on Sky Sports Mix. Can't wait for PFT Live to return. Favorite football film of all time is, even though it's slow in parts, it is The Longest Yard, the original Longest Yard. I like the second one, but I love the original. And the original, and I have this memory of being at the drive-in with my mom and my sister and a buddy of mine to go see King Kong, the Jeff Bridges, Jessica Lange King Kong of the mid-'70s. And the second feature that night was a film called The Longest Yard. I hadn't heard of The Longest Yard. I didn't know what it was about. And holy crap, it's about football. And wow, this is something. And when the F-bomb started to fly, it was the first time I was ever around my mother when someone else said the F word. And I didn't know how to act. Like, do I act like I know what that word is? Do I say, what's that word? Like, what do I do? Like, you feel like the spotlight's on you, like you're the one trying to break out of prison. Like, I don't know. I am not familiar with that term. I have never heard that term before. That is some sort of foreign language. Anyway, it was a great memory. It was a great movie. It's a great movie. I feel like I need to watch it again. Longest Yard. And yeah, I mean, there are others that have been okay, but for the most part, football movies are kind of disappointing. Heaven Can Wait sucks. Where did Heaven Can Wait was like Bill Simmons was talking about Heaven Can Wait and he ended up throwing a stray at somebody. It ended up being something. And it was like during this conversation about Heaven Can Wait, I can't remember, but it was a shot at Pablo. That's how it came up. You took a shot at Pablo Torre while talking about Heaven Can Wait. I watched Heaven Can Wait within the past 7 or 8 months. It sucked. It was so bad. It was so ridiculously far-fetched. I know we have to suspend disbelief if we're going to go to the movies, but good Lord. Good Lord. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch Heaven Can Wait, as much of it as you can. Hopefully you've watched all of this edition of PFT PM. We've only got 2 left before PFT Live returns on Monday, July 28. All camps are open. Plenty of stuff is happening. New content. We're feeding the beast around the clock at ProFootballTalk.com. Thanks, as always, for some of your time. See you again back here tomorrow. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.